Have you ever felt that no matter how much you explain, it's never enough? Have you ever noticed that the more you try to justify who you are, the further you drift from your own essence? Perhaps you haven't realized yet, but the constant need to explain yourself is a subtle trap, an invisible pit where your energy drains, your self-esteem wears thin, and your peace slips away. Today, more than ever, we're pressured to give explanations, to justify our decisions, to explain our silences, to defend even what we feel. But Stoicism, this ancient philosophy so alive today, reveals something powerful. Those who need to explain themselves all the time still haven't grasped their own worth. In this video, you'll discover that stopping the need to explain isn't arrogance. It's emotional maturity. It's the start of a silent yet visible transformation. It's the art of standing your ground without shouting, being firm without hurting, and stepping away without guilt. You'll understand how the posture of a true Stoic commands respect. Without raising your voice, without seeking approval, without bending. You'll learn to use silence as armor, presence as authority, and, above all, to not let others' doubts disrupt your clarity. So, take a deep breath. If this video resonates with you on any level, comment below. I don't need to explain myself to be respected. This phrase is your anchor, your new starting point. Now, let's walk together through this silence that commands and transforms. If this video made sense to you, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this content with someone who needs to learn to stop explaining themselves. The dignity of silence, when you shouldn't explain anything. Why over-explaining weakens your position. Every time you feel the need to over-explain, there's an invisible imbalance at play. The insistence on justifying every step unintentionally conveys insecurity. It's as if you're asking for permission to be yourself. And the other person notices. From there, the dynamic shifts. You place yourself below, and they rise above. Over-explaining gives others the power to judge you, and that weakens your stance. Those who assert themselves don't need to defend themselves. Those who are clear don't need to convince. The Stoic perspective on dignity and self-control. Stoicism invites us to a kind of inner strength that doesn't need an audience. Dignity, in this philosophy, is silent. It doesn't shout, beg, or argue. It endures. Self-control is more than restraining an impulse. It's knowing when to stay silent, even when your ego wants to react. Marcus Aurelius said, "What is not our concern should be set aside." Over-explaining is often carrying burdens that aren't yours. The Stoic mind, then, chooses what matters, maintaining peace, not winning debates. How to earn respect without justifying your actions. True respect isn't won with arguments. It's earned through presence. When you act with integrity and don't bend to others' judgments, something shifts in their perception. They sense something solid in you, a core, a center, and that commands respect because it's rare. Silent consistency speaks louder than any verbal defense. The secret lies in doing, not explaining, in being, not proving. People who respect themselves attract respect, not because they demand it, but because they embody strength. Practical techniques to stop explaining yourself. Training silence is an act of mental reprogramming. Start by noticing when you feel compelled to justify your choices. Breathe, pause, and say only what's necessary. Use simple, neutral phrases. That was my decision. I'm at peace with it. Don't fill uncomfortable silences. Learn to withstand the absence of external approval. Practice self-assertion in small settings before bigger confrontations. And remember, emotional maturity is saying no without explaining and moving forward. Silent respect, when presence speaks, louder than words. There's a power born from silence, a presence that commands without raising a voice. It's when you walk into a room and say nothing, yet people feel there's something unshakable in you. It's pure self-respect. This calm, firm, silent energy is what Stoicism calls natural command. It's not pride or coldness, but a deep inner peace that no disapproving glance can break. And then the world starts to listen, even when you don't speak. The noise of over-explaining, how it diminishes your authority. Over-explaining is like trying to put out a fire with emotional gasoline. The more you talk, the more you fuel the other person's doubt and your own. It's an invisible cycle of exhaustion that undermines your presence without you noticing. Trying too hard to convince sounds like disguised pleading, and that erodes your authority bit by bit. The other person, sensing you bend to be understood, doesn't respect your opinion. They weigh it, judge it, and demand more. And the more you give, the more you empty yourself. Stoicism reminds us that true strength lies in not reacting to external noise. Dignity isn't being accepted, it's staying whole, even when others don't understand your path. The Stoic mind values restraint. It knows not everything deserves a response. Silence can be louder than any argument, and by sparing words, you save energy. It's not arrogance, it's self-control. Silent authority is built on steadfastness, not insistence. Respect isn't earned with long speeches. It's commanded with clear boundaries and consistent actions. Those who know what they're doing don't have time to justify every step. A firm, self-assured presence says everything that needs to be said, without detours. Those who need applause for every action are trapped in the cycle of validation. But those who act with stoic confidence plant invisible roots, deep, solid, and immune to others' opinions. And from that, respect grows, not from what's explained, but from what's sustained. If you want to break free from the need to explain, start observing your triggers. When you feel the urge to justify something, pause and ask, is this explanation for clarity or fear of rejection? That changes everything. Avoid detailing decisions to those unprepared to understand. Use the weight of silence as a tool of self-defense. Cultivate direct, unembellished phrases. And remember, the more you know yourself, the less you need to defend yourself. Self-knowledge shields you from within. Because in the end, it's your silent energy that sets boundaries, not words. It's your steady gaze, your grounded presence, your lack of haste that says, I know who I am. When you stop explaining, others start listening more closely. When you choose silence, your posture becomes the answer. And in the space between what you hold back and what others perceive, true respect is born. The value of invisible intention. Who you are speaks louder than what you say. You could have the most eloquent speech in the world. If your energy doesn't back it up, the words fall flat. People don't just hear what you say, they feel who you are. That's why invisible intention matters more than 1,000 justifications. Coherence is silent but powerful. When you live what you believe, you don't need to explain. Your presence says it all. Your silence conveys more confidence than a rehearsed list of arguments. And respect stems from that. From the integrity that's felt, not the speech that's heard. Stoicism teaches that character speaks before words. Truth lies in your gaze, your posture, the way you navigate conflicts without losing yourself. The Stoic mind doesn't need to shout it's right. It simply acts with resolve and serenity. And that serenity is contagious. It's like a magnetic field of emotional maturity. Instead of rushing to explain, the wise ask, what can my silence teach now? That's the authority that needs no proof because it's rooted in something greater, your essence. Those who need to prove too much are often at war within, but those at peace with themselves don't compete with the external world. True inner power comes from alignment between intention and action. When you do what you say and feel what you live, others sense it, effortlessly, without performance. And then, explanations become unnecessary. You just are. because the steadfast presence of someone who knows themselves commands a natural respect. Dignity lives there, where truth needs no defense. Want to practice this? Observe your daily actions. See if what you say aligns with what you do. Learn to not respond immediately. Give others time to perceive who you are without rushing to prove your worth. Don't try to convince anyone of your goodness, your character, your effort. Be all of that in silence. And trust that in time, the world will notice. Because what's true resonates, even without sound. And perhaps, deep down, the secret is this. It's not about what you say. It's about what you radiate. It's about how your soul enters a room and transforms everything, not with words but with presence. That presence is your invisible signature. And when it's aligned with your truth, respect becomes inevitable. The psychological game of approval, how to stop bending to be accepted. There's a silent trap many fall into, the desire to be understood by everyone. It's the invisible game of approval. You explain, adapt, diminish yourself, all to avoid losing someone's gaze. And each time you do, you lose a piece of yourself. It's an unfair trade. You give up your essence for scraps of acceptance. And the irony? Those who demand explanations are rarely interested in understanding. They want control. And bit by bit, that erodes your strength. In the Stoic view, this need to please everyone is a disguised form of emotional slavery. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." When your opinion of yourself depends on others' opinions, you're no longer free. The Stoic seeks inner freedom. They understand not everyone will like or understand them, and that's okay. Emotional maturity comes when you stop bending to be accepted and start rising to be whole. Respect and approval are opposite paths. Those who seek constant love lose respect. They live malleably, anxiously, submissively. But those who choose to be true, even if it displeases, build a solid presence. It's not about defying others. It's about not abandoning yourself. When you say no, when you stand your ground, even silently, others understand. Here's someone who knows themselves. And that sparks a rare kind of respect, not born of likability, but of inner strength. Want to escape this game? Start identifying where you adapt too much. Notice if your choices are authentic or strategic to avoid rejection. Say less yes out of fear and more no out of self-respect. Each time you prioritize yourself, you reinforce your dignity. Over time, this becomes habit, posture, presence. Rewiring your mind means shifting from seeking approval to cultivating inner peace, because that peace sustains the steadfast presence of someone who no longer needs to explain. And when you start respecting yourself, the world adjusts. People who once demanded justifications back off. Situations that cast you as the defendant vanish. And a new field emerges, one of natural command, where you don't force, beg, or negotiate. You simply are. And those who want to walk with you will have to earn it. The energy of, "I don't justify myself," how it creates a natural field of respect. There's an almost sacred energy in refusing to justify yourself. It's as if silence says, "My peace is worth more than your curiosity." And that alone shifts the dynamic. Those who don't justify themselves don't kneel emotionally. They stand tall, even under criticism or probing stares. Not out of arrogance, but clarity. The clarity that not everything deserves a response. That dignity is preserved, not proven. And when you hold that stance, a field of respect begins to form around you. The Stoic mind understands that excessive justification signals doubt. Those who constantly explain themselves don't fully trust their choices. True self-control isn't just about not reacting, it's about not exposing yourself where there's no receptivity. Marcus Aurelius would say, "It's not worth wasting words on those who lack ears to hear them." This silent filter separates the wise from the impulsive. The wise observe, and if they see the other only wants to react, they don't defend. They withdraw. The fascinating thing is, by not justifying yourself, you become more heard. The absence of words creates presence, a presence that commands, that sparks doubt in others, yes, but a good kind. How do they stay so calm under questioning? That mystery attracts. It captivates. It commands respect. And gradually, without fanfare, you're recognized for a strength that needs no explanations. Because true respect doesn't come from speech. It comes from the integrity sustained in silence. To apply this, start small. The next time you feel the urge to justify something, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is this necessary or just fear of being misunderstood? If it's fear, stay at peace. Give short, direct responses. And if needed, just smile and move on. At first, silence may feel uncomfortable, but over time it becomes a shield of emotional maturity, steadfast presence, and silent authority. And those who sense it in you respect you. Because there's something magnetic about those who don't justify themselves, something inexplicable, only felt. It's a vibration of inner security, emotional detachment, of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to be everything. That's the energy of I don't justify myself. It protects, elevates, and transforms your presence into a sacred space where only those who respect can enter. The exhaustion of self-explanation. Why you always lose. There's a subtle exhaustion few notice. The toll of constantly trying to explain yourself. It's like running on an emotional treadmill that never stops. With every new doubt from others, a new justification. And this doesn't just tire, it drains, because you're not living your truth. You're molding yourself to others' expectations. Your soul wilts quietly, bit by bit. And the worst part? Even when you explain, you're not always understood. The more you try, the less whole you feel. Stoicism points out that a life of excessive explanations is one of emotional slavery. Those who live explaining themselves live on the defensive, and those on the defensive have no inner space to grow. The Stoic asks, what's truly under my control? The answer is simple: your posture, your energy, your peace. Dignity lies in not wearing yourself out trying to be understood by those who've already decided not to listen. That takes courage, the courage to not waste energy on what doesn't nourish. Over-explaining is also a quest for validation. You say more than needed because, deep down, you want approval. But the more you seek approval, the further you drift from respect. Respect comes from conscious silence, from inner security. From the posture that says, I don't need to convince you, only to stay true to myself. And at that point, something shifts. You stop losing in conversations. You stop feeling small, because you finally realized you don't need to win arguments. You need to preserve your soul. In practice, try not responding to everything immediately. When someone confronts you, pause, look, breathe. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful response you can give. Replace justifications with simple affirmations. For example, that was my choice. This makes sense to me. Done. Don't fill the silence with fear. Fill it with presence. Over time, this new posture becomes your norm, and the exhaustion of explaining starts to fade, like mist clearing at sunrise. Because in the end, every unnecessary explanation is an emotional cost you don't need to pay. Your energy is too valuable to be spent on others' doubts. Use it to build, not defend. Use it to grow, not justify. And then, you'll start living with more lightness, more strength, and more respect from within and without. The power of simply walking away. When you're not understood. Not every withdrawal is flight. Sometimes it's protection. There are moments when silence isn't just a response, it's healing. When you realize your words aren't being heard with heart, but filtered through judgment, the wisest thing is to step back, not out of weakness, but strength. Because explaining yourself in an unreceptive environment is like sowing seeds on concrete, wasted effort. The Stoic knows this. They understand that withdrawal, when done well, is a way to preserve the sacred within. Stoic philosophy teaches that self-knowledge gives us permission to choose where and with whom to invest energy. If a place demands constant explanation, it may not deserve your presence. Walking away sometimes is necessary. It's the most dignified way to stay whole. It's what Marcus Aurelius called strategic retreat. Leaving a situation without losing yourself. When you stop trying to be understood by those who only want to win, you make space to return to yourself. Walking away isn't vanishing from the world. It's stepping out of the arena of demands, expectations, and judgment. It's exiting the stage so your silent energy can work for you, because what's left unsaid also speaks. And often, the silence left by your absence is more impactful than any speech. People who didn't hear you while you spoke start listening when you go quiet. Conscious absence becomes amplified presence. It reveals the value your presence concealed. In practice, this takes courage. Start small. If a conversation turns toxic, end it respectfully and withdraw. If an environment demands constant explanations, ask, is it worth staying? Emotional maturity is recognizing when persistence is self-betrayal. Walking away isn't breaking, it's restoring. It's returning to your center. And, if needed, coming back stronger, clearer, more whole, or not coming back, which is also an act of self-love. Because sometimes, the loudest cry of dignity is the silence of someone who chooses to leave without noise. And in that silence, something magical happens. Others rethink, reassess, recalibrate, and you finally breathe without needing to explain anything. The Stoic art of setting boundaries without shouting. There's a way to command respect without shouting or exploding. It's called silent boundaries. It's when your posture communicates more than your voice, when your gaze, your gesture, your decision leave no room for intrusion. The Stoic understands that true boundaries aren't negotiated. They're presented, and the more emotionally mature you are, the calmer you become when standing your ground. Because those who know themselves don't need to raise their voice, they just stay firm, and those who sense that firmness back off. Stoicism shows us that self-control is one of the greatest forms of inner power. Setting boundaries with serenity is an act of profound self-knowledge. Not shouting is a sign you don't need to prove anything. You simply know where your peace ends and where another's disturbance begins. And then without offense, without attack, without long justifications, you draw an invisible line, a line that says, "Not here." And that by itself educates more than 1,000 sermons, because the tone may be calm, but the intention is non-negotiable. Those who shout to be respected often don't yet respect themselves internally. It's the noise of fear, insecurity, lack of personal mastery. But powerful silence comes from Stoic confidence, from knowing that those who don't explain don't beg. If you need to raise your voice, something's been lost. But if you can stay calm and firm, you win. You win dignity, you win self-respect, you win silent authority, and you create a space where others think twice before crossing. In practice, start setting boundaries with short, calm phrases. "This doesn't work for me. I'd rather not comment. I'm not comfortable with this." Don't react with anger, react with clarity. The secret is not to match the other's energy. Maintain your vibration. Feel the discomfort and stay firm anyway. That's the Stoic posture, unshaken on the outside, even if everything inside wants to scream, because true strength is the one that knows how to stay silent to preserve. And the more you master this art of asserting yourself without aggression, the more you transform your presence into sacred ground. A space where no one invades, pressures, or demands. only respects, because your silence has already made it clear, without a single explanation. Strategic silence, how staying quiet commands more respect than arguing. In a world where everyone shouts to be right, silence can be the most disruptive act. Silence, when born of awareness, isn't the absence of a response. It's a superior one. It's when you choose not to play the game, even when you hold all the cards. And that choice changes everything. While the other escalates, you observe. While they demand, you withdraw. And in that withdrawal, an invisible strength begins to form. Strategic silence isn't passivity, it's personal mastery, and those who master themselves command respect effortlessly. Stoicism teaches that true wisdom isn't in winning arguments, but in preserving inner peace. Epictetus said, "If someone offends you, think, they're fighting their own shadow." So, instead of reacting, the Stoic observes. And when they see no room for growth, they stay silent. Not to yield, but to not lower themselves. In this case, silence is both shield and sword. A shield against others' venom. A sword against your own ego that wants to prove something at all costs. By choosing not to argue, you subvert the logic of tension. The other expects resistance and gets an abyss. They expect war and find silence. That disarms, it destabilizes, and it reveals. You're not fighting for ego, you're defending your integrity. That's where silent authority is born. An authority that doesn't need a loud voice because it commands through calm. Strategic silence is also an invitation. Reflect on what you're doing. And many only realize the weight of their words when you choose not to respond. Want to practice this? In your next tough conversation, listen more than you speak. If you feel the urge to retort, breathe. If you want to prove something, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Use pauses as a form of presence. Let the other hear themselves. Sometimes the greatest embarrassment comes from the echo of their own excess. And you, meanwhile, maintain your posture, your stoic mind, your peace. Because you've understood you don't need to win. You just need to not lose yourself. And the more you master the power of strategic silence, the more you realize it's not the argument that commands respect, it's self-control. It's the strength to stay firm even when everything inside you wants to react. And in that mastery, you become untouchable. Those who need to understand already do. The truth is simple. Those truly open to understanding you get even your silence. They don't demand explanations. They don't press for justifications, because they feel you beyond words. But those who insist you explain often just want control. They don't want to understand. They want to dominate. And the more you bend to those demands, the further you drift from yourself. So there comes a time when you need to make peace with the fact that not everyone will understand you. And that's okay. Stoicism teaches we can't control others' opinions, but we're fully responsible for how much they affect us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." In other words, you don't need to force anyone to understand your journey. You just need to stay steady on it. Those who are ready will meet you. Those who aren't will stay where they are. And both have the right to do so. Without explanations, without resentment. Accepting that some won't understand you is liberation. Because in that moment, you stop living to convince. And you start living to be whole, to be true, to be calm, to be firm. The presence you sustain in silence speaks louder than any argument. What radiates from you when you're at peace needs no caption. Emotional maturity lies in this, not carrying the burden of others' understanding, but the lightness of your own truth. Want to live this? The next time someone doesn't understand you, don't try to explain. Just observe. Feel if it's worth spending your energy there. And if it's not, smile. Be grateful internally and move on. Trust that those in tune with you will understand even your subtlest gestures. And those who aren't, no matter how much you say, will never truly hear. Your steadfast presence says all that needs to be said, and those who should get it will. And so you realize, it's not about being understood by everyone. It's about being true to yourself. And when that truth pulses in silence, it echoes in the subconscious of those with eyes to see and ears to feel. You don't need to convince anyone to be respected anymore. You don't need to shout, justify, or ask permission to exist. What you need is to remember that your silence has a voice, that your inner strength is worth more than any argument, and that those who truly matter will hear you even when you choose not to speak. From today, choose to preserve your peace over winning debates. Choose self-respect over others' approval. Stop negotiating your boundaries out of fear of displeasing. You have the right to walk away, to stay silent, to simply say no. And above all, you have the duty to protect what keeps you whole. So tell me, how many times have you lost yourself trying to be understood? How many times have you lowered your energy to fit into someone's world who never wanted to hear you? Today, that can change. But for that, you need to choose yourself. Write in the comments, "My silence is also wisdom." And let that phrase echo through your day. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this content with someone who needs to learn to stop explaining themselves.